You know, it's been crazy to see how cities have started boarding up. You can almost feel the tension here in D.C. and across the country as people prepare for what this jury comes out with.
Yeah, take a look. I put that up on the screen. That was a sign that's all over downtown Washington. As I was driving into work today and looking for a parking space, it was weird. I was like, how come there is no, there was literally one of those on all of the blocks around. And check out the middle of the thing when it says why. It says it's for a First Amendment reason, meaning these guys are expecting in downtown D.C. protesters, and they've now got all of downtown D.C. made into a no parking zone because I think they don't know when the verdict's going to come.
Right.
And so they're just making sure that everything's off the street.
Yeah. And, and the case pretty much comes down to this. The prosecution says that Chauvin is guilty of murder because he had to have known that squeezing the life out of George Floyd when he pinned his knee on him for almost 9 minutes last month, that he was killing him at the time. Chauvin has actually pleaded not guilty, and his defense lawyer has argued that Floyd died of underlying heart issues and because he had a few different drugs in his system at the time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've listened to a lot of these legal analysis that that have been on our network and some other places, and it's interesting because there's so many technicalities that go into what needs to be proven in terms of the different charges. So there's second degree and third degree. And I frankly think the reaction of the protesters is going to depend on whether or not he gets second degree murder, right? If he gets third degree, what I've heard from a lot of folks is they don't think that's good enough at all. I think it's like a 5-year sentence. And if he gets acquitted, I think we're going to see real problems. And you pointed this out earlier when we were talking that the anniversary of the death of George Floyd is actually coming up in May. So you're going to have this confluence of events that is probably going to cause a lot of unrest.
Yeah, that's May 25th. So we're just a little bit over a month out from that.
Yeah, and while the jury's deliberating, Minneapolis is definitely all locked down. I mean, we talk about the parking here, but they've got storefronts boarded up, and all of their schools are going virtual because they anticipate a lot of these violent protests coming. And obviously, you can't tell when the verdict's going to get handed down.
Yeah, and on top of that, Sean, there's actually 3,000 National Guard troops that have been deployed to Minneapolis, 1,100 public safety officers who've been brought in to deal with this anticipated unrest.
Yeah, and it's 2 of those Guard troops were actually injured in a drive-by shooting Sunday morning. Obviously, they were very thankful that there was not any life-threatening injuries, but law enforcement is clearly preparing for the worst. And, there was this one soundbite, and people have seen it already, but I cannot play it enough because Maxine Waters, the congresswoman from California, she went to Minneapolis this weekend, and there's nothing short of stoking the flames that can be said about what she did, but I'll let you listen and decide.
We've got to not only stay in the street, but we've got to fight for justice. And we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
Okay, more confrontational, Lindsay. That's what gets me, right? That I don't think that that's been the issue, but to tell people that's what they need to do. Yes, this is America. If you don't like what's going on, get your voice heard, be active, all of that. But to tell people to get more confrontational, that is stirring the pot, to say the least. That is encouraging violence.
Yeah, to say those words, to be more confrontational. But Sean, this isn't the first time that Maxine Waters has done something like this. Listen.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
The people are going to turn on them. They're going to protest. They're going to absolutely harass them until they decide that they're going to tell the president, no, I can't hang with you. With this kind of inspiration, I will go and take Trump out tonight.
In those clips, she talks about harassing people, pushing back, confrontational. Those are not helpful words.
Take them out.
Yeah, take them out. I don't know how you can misinterpret this. We've had a lot of people talk about inciting violence in the last few months. That's inciting violence.
Yeah.
And she definitely got a little pushback from her own colleagues in the House of Representatives, all from the Republican side. And I was watching all the Sunday shoes because I have to, and I that's kind of, it's always the political things that get talked about. Not one of these people, not Chuck Todd, not Jake Tapper, none of them. They did not even mention this. They have all all the time in the world to talk about Republicans and Donald Trump, but not this. Leader Kevin McCarthy, the head of the Republicans in the House, tweeted this out. Maxine Waters is inciting violence in Minneapolis, just as she has incited it in the past, which is the clip that you referenced. If Speaker Pelosi doesn't act against this dangerous rhetoric, I will bring action this week. You know, Lyndsay, they stripped Marjorie Taylor Greene of her committees for things that she said before becoming a member of Congress. They need to act on someone who is a member of Congress inciting violence, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great point to mention. I mean, she's doing this as she's a sitting member of Congress and saying all those things that we just played for you. And you know, Sean, you even have the New York Post editorial blog calling for Walters to be removed. They said this in a quote: in supporting the second impeachment of President Donald Trump, California Democrat Rep. Congresswoman Maxine Waters said she was inciting his followers and was trying to create a civil war. You know, her own words here would call for her to be impeached, they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, by her standards, she should be reprimanded.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You know, and she's not the only one out there. You have Ilhan Omar, also
Shocker.
Congresswoman, blasting state's governor and Minneapolis mayor for not trying to keep the peace with police preparations. She tweeted this: Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Fry have placed us under military occupation. Operation Safety Net can't be an operation to violate people's First Amendment rights and their civil liberties. Stop terrorizing people who are protesting the brutality of state-sanctioned violence. The crazy part about this, Sean, is, you know, people can get out there. She's acting like if you can't be violent, then you're not doing your First Amendment right, which is not true. It says that you can protest in peace.
Yeah. I mean, it's
peacefully.
Yeah, well, actually, let's remember when Chris Cuomo, he had this to say last summer when all that was happening.
And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Well, Chris, I'll show you the Constitution. It literally says peacefully protest. But this is where the line is. People are committing acts of violence. We saw rioting, we saw looting, we saw destruction, vandalism. That's not acceptable. We've said it before when it was on the right. We've said it before it was on the left. And, you know, he said more this weekend that again, is not helpful. Take a listen to him this past weekend.
Gun laws, access to weapons. Oh, I know when they'll change. Your kids start getting killed. White people's kids start getting killed. Those start piling up. What is going on with these police? What? Maybe we shouldn't even have police. That kind of mania, that kind of madness, that'll be you. That'll be the majority.
No, it won't. And the idea that he's trying to justify this, maybe he's doing all this to distract from all the stuff that his brother's in trouble for, but this is ridiculous. And it was interesting because, you know, when you see stuff like that, a lot more makes sense. And they're backed up by some figures that we just saw from the Media Research Center that came out. They show that the coverage between President Trump and President Biden was stunning. During his first 3 months in office, the broadcast news gave 59% of the coverage of Biden in a positive manner. When you look at Trump's first few months, it was 89% negative. I actually think that 89% is low, and the 59% of positive coverage from Biden is negative. Right? I mean, it's crazy. And there's more evidence that that all these guys are in the tank for the president. This was a comment that one of the ABC commentators made on This Week, just on yesterday's Sunday show.
Republicans have a much narrower interpretation of what infrastructure is than Democrats. Republicans looking at things that we would conventionally consider infrastructure, roads, bridges, and in some cases broadband, while Democrats want to see a much more robust package, including things that we would typically consider social issues like paid family leave, like childcare, education, the list goes on.
You know, we talked about the definition all last week. This isn't a Republican definition of infrastructure. We looked it up in the dictionary last week. That's what infrastructure is. This isn't a Republican version and a Democrat. That's what it is.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.